Hello students, today in this video let us start a new chapter that is reproduction in plants. Okay, so all the living organisms, including even the plants, they need to reproduce. Okay, so they live for some period of time and then like after reaching certain stage in their life, they die. Okay, so that time period for which they can stay alive is called the lifespan. Okay, so all these organisms, they used to die after completing their lifespan. Okay, so what will happen if the organisms could not reproduce? Okay, if they did not have the ability to reproduce, then they would die and then their whole species or their very organism would extinct. Okay, so to avoid that one, to avoid their extinction, what they do, they have the ability to reproduce. Okay, so reproduction is a process by which organism can reproduce the like its own young ones, okay, or its own kind. Okay, they can reproduce their young ones. Okay, and then in this chapter we are going to study the different methods of this reproduction in plants. Okay, so this reproduction it takes place. It is of two types, that is sexual and asexual. Okay, so even in plants they have this reproduction which is of two types. Okay, in sexual reproduction what happens, it involves two parents. Okay, and in asexual reproduction it involves only one or single parent. Okay, so first of all we will study the types of asexual reproduction. Okay, so in asexual reproduction, what is happening here? We have only one parent. Okay, only one or single parent, and then in this type of reproduction, the offspring or the new living organisms which is produced from the parent one, they are identical. Okay, they are identical offspring, you can say. So identical means they look the same. There is no variation. Variation means difference. Okay, there is no difference between the parents and the offspring. All the offspring are identical. Okay, so the different types of asexual reproduction in plants are, we will study different types. That is budding. We will study budding, fragmentation, spore formation, and vegetative propagation. Okay, vegetative propagation. So these are the four methods of asexual reproduction. Okay, under asexual reproduction we have budding, fragmentation, spore formation, and vegetative propagation. Okay, so now let us study the first one, that is the budding. Okay, so in budding what happens, how does the reproduction take place? Let us see. So this budding is a asexual reproduction that takes place in plants. Okay, so first one, budding. So this type of reproduction usually takes place in organisms like unicellular organisms. Okay, unicellular organisms like yeast. Okay, you know yeast. Yes or no? So in yeast, this type of reproduction, okay, budding type of reproduction will take place in yeast. Okay, now the parents of the parent yeast is like this. Okay, so it's a single cell organism. Unicellular means single cell. Okay, so they are of single cell. They have nucleus here. Okay, so this is the parent. Okay, so in this budding type of reproduction, what happens, from the parent body, a bud-like structure will come out. Okay, small bud-like structure will just produce. Okay, so with a nucleus. So this is the called the bud. Okay, and then in the next step, this bud will start growing bigger and bigger. Okay, and then the nucleus. This is the nucleus. Let me just write it down here. This is the nucleus. Okay. So in the next step, in the consequently, this nucleus also will, what will happen? They will also elongate, and then this bud will also increase in size. Now this nucleus, they will elongate, and then in the next step, what will happen? Each of them, even both the parts, they will have separate nucleus. Okay, and then they used to. This is the baby yeast. Okay, this is the offspring, and this is the parent. Okay, so this offspring or the baby yeast, they will still remain attached to the parent body for some time. Okay, until they are mature. Okay, now when they become mature enough, what will happen? They will detach from the parent body. So this will detach from the parent body, and then they will start living individually, or they will start existing independently. Okay, so this is how the reproduction takes place in yeast, and then this type of reproduction is called budding. Okay, now next one we will study the another type of reproduction, that is spore formation. Okay, second one is spore formation. So in spore formation, in what type of organism this type of reproduction takes place? Okay, so it takes place in fungi, okay, ferns, and mosses. Okay, so this type of reproduction takes place in fungi, ferns, and mosses. So these plants, okay, fungi, ferns, and mosses, the reproductive part, okay, the reproductive part of these plants are spherical in shape, okay, like spherical in shape, okay. So these are called spores. Okay, so this will give rise to new. So in ferns, fungi, and mosses, reproduction takes place by these spores. Okay, these are reproductive bodies. Okay, they can be either unicellular or multicellular, and then with the help of these spores only, new individuals are produced. Okay, and then these spores, when they are in unfavorable condition, okay, if the climatic conditions, temperature, moisture, if it is not suitable, then they will be protected by a shell. Okay, protected by a shell. Okay, and then when the climatic conditions are favorable, okay, when the right type of this temperature and then moisture and then even this climatic conditions they arrive, then this shell used to burst. Okay, the shell will burst and then burst open, and then they will release the spores, and then that is how reproduction takes place in fungi, ferns, and then mosses. Now next one is next type of reproduction in asexual reproduction. Okay, right now we are talking about asexual reproduction, okay, which involves only one parent. Okay, so the third type of asexual reproduction in plants is fragmentation. Okay, so this type of reproduction usually takes place in algae. Okay, algae, you know what are algae? Yes or no? So algae are the green structures that you normally see in the rivers, on the surface of the stones. Okay, so these are algae. Okay, and particularly it takes place in Spirogyra. There is one algae whose name is Spirogyra. Okay, so in this Spirogyra, this fragmentation takes place. Okay, so suppose this is the long strand of this Spirogyra. Okay, so what is the structure? Now this Spirogyra, how they will reproduce? Okay, they do not produce any spores. They no bud formation is there. Okay, they will simply break into small pieces. Okay, they will just break into small fragments. Okay, that is why only the name is fragmentation. This type of reproduction is called fragmentation. Okay, so each fragment, all these fragments, now they will grow into a new organism, okay, or a new individual. Okay, so this is how this fragmentation takes place in algae like Spirogyra. Okay, and the last one is the last type of asexual reproduction in plants is vegetative propagation. Okay, vegetative propagation. So here, what happens? This vegetative propagation here in a plant. Okay, the part of the plant, the structure of the plant from anywhere, from any part, they can reproduce. Okay, now let me tell you one thing, that in the plant, okay, only the flower, okay, the flower is the reproductive part of the plant. Okay, except for the flower, the remaining parts, leaves, stems, branches, roots, all these parts are called vegetative parts. Okay, and then only flower, that is the reproductive part. In vegetative propagation, reproduction takes place from any part of the plant except for the flower. And then this vegetative reproduction, again, it is of many types. Okay, so we will study these types of vegetative propagation one by one.